Welcome everyone to the July 2025 edition of the Kentucky K-12 CIO and EdTech Leaders Webcast. I'm David Couch with the Kentucky Department of Education. If this is the first time or you're joining us, or one of the initial times you're joining us, we do this every month to give you an update what's going on at the national and state level, what's going on with education technology, and a little bit beyond education technology, and learn about what's going on in districts as well. So thank you for joining us today. I sent the agenda to you yesterday, along with a summary of last month, which we always post up on our Acadia Media portal, just not the video, but we also do the summary notes that you see that we post out for people to keep up with, and they can do a cut and paste of what we cover. So, and we also have the poll questions that are up there. We have 4 poll questions, so we'd ask you to respond to those, and those are very helpful for a variety of reasons. It helps your fellow districts out, what's going on, and with certain things, and also definitely helps us out in what we're doing. We've used those for a variety of very helpful kind of reasons, so please participate in that. So first up is the finances. There's quite a bit of financial information that's happened since we last met in June. A good portion of that is great news since we last met. So if you were taking time off in June and didn't keep up with this, weren't aware of this, I'm going to cover it here in July. So the first item is the Kentucky Board of Education made the Kentucky Education Technology System a top 5 funding priority for the upcoming 2026 legislative session. It's actually number 4. Took a little screen snapshot of that. You can see the top ones are, of course, SEEK funding, transportation, and the kindergarten. So, and those are typically been ones at the top, and we would never say, hey, listen, we are more important at all those. But I think in your conversations with your superintendent CFO, and we would ask you to do that. And I think one of our questions we're going to say, can you help? I mean, part of this is a team effort of what we're going on at the state level. I've also recently met with our vendor partners. We met with them last week about how they can help out with this. As I've mentioned before, the agency does not have lobbyists. We're not permitted to hire lobbyists. So those lobbyists have to be all of us. But there are some companies that have those that are KETS partners that we've asked them for their assistance on helping us get our additional budget request raised up from $15.4 million, which we'll share with you today, how that's spent over the next school year, up to $30 million per year. And this is to recover from some significant cuts we have received over the past 15 years in cost of living expenses. And we've gotten zero since the birth of KETS for the cost of living expenses since 1992. So we would ask you, and I know one of our poll questions here is to, will you help us in that assistance? And not saying, hey, listen, fund KETS, but in your discussion with superintendents, bring to their attention that KETS has been a top 4 funding priority. And in their discussion with their superintendents and their CFO, as they discuss with legislators, please mention KETS as the importance of funding. And that impacts all of you directly. I'll start right with your offer of assistance. It impacts you all directly to help us out. It impacts districts directly. If we have to stop funding certain things, you all will pay probably 60% more, at least 50% more for the same product we get because we're buying at the state level and driving down costs. Chuck, were you going to mention something about this part here to help me out?
Well, no, David, I think it's just really critical, for all of our COs, EdTech leaders, to really understand the sense of urgency around the topic. I mean, I feel like we've done a good job over the last couple of years of forecasting. I think you used some terminology a couple of years ago about a funding cliff. I know you and Mike are going to talk about, maybe some unexpected opportunities that came in at the last second that maybe have deferred, the impact on the funding cliff. But at the end of the day, I think what all the people in the KETS community need to do when they talk to the superintendents is just reiterate that without the funding increase that we're targeting for next legislative session, you at the local level will continue to see, unfortunately, costs at the state level get pushed down to the local level at a higher percentage. And absolutely, you'll start seeing a reduction in that offer of assistance that we've tried really hard over the last couple of years to stabilize.
So this doesn't take, I know a lot of people say, I don't want to be involved with the money business side of it, but if you're not somewhat involved in the money business, then you're really hurting future opportunities. If I say a lot of planning and desires that you have without money is a hallucination, as I've constantly said. So you can have all the things you want to do, but if you don't have the money, it's a hallucination. And so do help us out with this. It doesn't take a lot. I've given a long history of folks in your all's position in districts that have made a huge impact on getting the CATS funding addressed over the years. And so we ask that you play that role. I know we have a poll question that I want to give you a chance to fill out. Is will you help us out in this effort of approaching your superintendent and saying, hey, listen, we're all for SEEK being raised up, but we also need CATS money raised up for the following reasons as it impacts your organization. And once again, the thing to share with your superintendent CFO is if we don't get these funding, the funds will either services will be cut and you will be paying 60% more of those if you want to keep going, or you'll do without them. And definitely your CATS offer assistance, which typically when we go through this annual budget, you're very interested in, and we've been able to hold it harmless, but we're getting toward the end of being able to do that without something to help us address this. So it behooves you, as what you're doing with education technology, to regularly infuse that. And obviously I've done that with our commissioner over the years, and definitely with Commissioner Fletcher, and he's definitely very supportive of what we're doing. And it's not saying not all the other stuff's important, but I lay out and I encourage you to take a look at the board meeting video. I give you this specific spot where I speak to it. Our board is, particularly those that were former superintendents, were very supportive of us, along with Lee Todd, who's always been very connected with K-12. So I encourage you to take a look at that, but please do your part. We're going to ask our vendor partners and those that came to our vendor meeting last week, and we'll be circling back with them, is to help us out with that additional budget request, since it benefits them directly as well. Getting some kind of alarm here, so hold on. That's good. So we didn't show the, I guess.
Yeah, I think we have David 30 responses so far.
Yeah, there's some kind of thing going on.
I think there's Amber Alert.
Amber Alert, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so far, of the responses, now 35 responses, 100% of folks responding that they're prepared to work with superintendents and help support this additional budget request, David. So that's awesome.
Yeah, please do that. And by the way, sounds like they found him. Yeah, I mean the Amber Alert, they got. It looks like they found him.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so that's good news.
That's awesome.
So thank you, and we'll regularly ask this. Obviously, the session doesn't happen start happening until January, but you got to set it up before that time frame, and definitely we'll be doing our part. So we're going to ask you all to help out with that as well.
Was that? Is she on it? It wasn't over there on the like.
I think we're going to need someone muted.
And I can't get David. I can't hear David Couch.
They can't hear me. So thank you. So let's talk about the next budget item. It's $4.3 million in ESSER funds. This was what was approved last September by the U.S. Department of Education. We found out on the 28th of March that it had been stopped. And then we have found out that it is moving forward. So that's good news. It helps us out with our CUES effort, helps us out with Infinite Campus. We have sent information out, and ODD informed the folks, and I just inform you all, if you not already know, that we were stopping the Infinite Campus payment for online registration and campus learning. But now that that has been restored, and that's what it was intended for, we're able to pay for that for another school year. But once again, circling back to the previous discussion, unless we get ongoing money to pay for it, it will stop. And so the federal money is a one-time, end of the kind of its eligibility, and we got extended a little bit further, but that's it. And we weighed whether do we have folks start realizing that now, so they understand the impacts of the funding stopping. But we decided to go forth and go ahead and pay for it. But Chuck's point's a good one. We're getting to the point of not being able to pay for things and all those costs shifting to you all, and you paying significantly more for those costs, or you doing without. And so it behooves all of us to speak up. I know not everybody's comfortable talking about money and asking for money. Need to ask for it in this case. We've been outstanding. All of us have been outstanding stewards of taxpayer funds of all sorts, federal, state, and local. And you know, as I told our board multiple times, and like with my kids, they would never speak up when they were hurt. But when I heard them say "owie," I knew they're hurt. And so I said "owie" to the board. I used "owie" for the finances. We have to have financial assistance now to help us over the next few years. So that's good news from the federal level. Another good news from the federal level is U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of really not removing the E-rate program or making significant changes to its funding for schools across America. To us, it's you know, we have applications over $50 million, but we know X percent of that districts don't follow through on and actually get. I know for ours, it's 100% that we apply for at KD that we actually apply for and ask for and then actually apply for later to be reimbursed on. So that's great news. And I sent you a link of the findings of that along with the clip, an attachment from a certain organization for you to take a look at. Some other things impacting funding, the U.S. Department of Education recently announced, and I think the school districts are aware of this, the holdup of $87 million for Kentucky K-12 and title funds. That was just recently approved in March timeframe by senior organizations up in Washington, D.C., and then was recently told that it's kind of been put on hold. And so, you know, the department, I think, put out a statement yesterday of our intention to try to get that money. And I think across the nation, all the schools and districts are doing the same type of thing because with this kind of late notice and those understand the flow of a school year, for them not to be able to count on a certain money source that they were promised and confirmed back in March, and you already have people in those positions in districts, that's a pretty big deal. And the big deal, and I'd be interested in the chat, if those that say it is, what is the big deal to school districts of this from an education technology perspective? So the one I thought of is digital learning coaches. And so you'll have to say, are digital learning coaches in your district paid for with these title monies? And what does that mean for them in the interim? What do you do? What do you do in the longer term? And what else is out there that is of significance that is impacted by the hold up this money that's education technology related? So I'd be interested in your comments that you have to that as we take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll watch the chat on that. I think that the idea of title monies supporting digital learning coaches also extends with our school technology coordinators in some districts, our STCs, as well as STLP coaches. And that kind of fits in that same frame.
Yep. So today is the U.S. Senate votes on whether to eliminate 100% of the funding for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. In my summary notes, I talked about last month and the previous months what that means to Kentucky for Kentucky educational television and its equivalents across America, and even smaller stations across America beyond Kentucky education television, what the impact that would be. Feel that vote's going to be close. We're hoping that the PBS funding is saved. But it'll have some significant consequences to Kentucky K-12 EdTech if it is not. I think of PBS Learning Media. That tool we highlighted in November is used by a high percentage of teachers across the state. Great product, and it's been used for decades. And its equivalent would be removed. A lot of the broadcasting that's education related from Kentucky Education Television will be impacted for our schools and for our communities. It's a big deal. So we'll be closely watching that to see if that's funded or not funded, but want to make sure you're aware of that consequence. Lastly, on the funding side is our CATS operational plan. We have a whole slew of people that helped to put that together and provide a report on that. And I use the opportunity, and we're bringing up the slide, which I appreciate to do it. I'll give you some background. For our Kentucky Board of Education, this is something by law that, and we like that we bring to their attention every year. And we make them aware of all the funding sources. The law really says it's got to make them aware of this 15.4 million, which it used to be 19.5, and actually used to be up to 24.5 at one time. But we've been through some sustained cuts, and it wasn't like we were targeted. It was all parts of the department, had reductions over the years, especially when you remember the mortgage crisis that happened out there. So I always use the opportunity to educate our board on the health of education technology. It's not just finances, because I want them to understand what it's doing. So I provide them the latest infographic, which will be part of the package that goes to them. Provide them the KEDS timeline, which shows since 1992 the outstanding things that we've done. And we have board members just like you all that come and go, or just generally need to be reminded once in a while that we've been great stewards of taxpayer funds and the outstanding things we have done over time. And then, much like you all, we have something called a staff note that we give some verbal background into it. In this one, I talk about and show a graphic over the course of time how much the money has dropped. And then we have a graphic that kind of goes through the money aspect of it from all funding sources that are out there. And so what you're seeing here is the 15.4 million, how that breaks out. And you can see that a portion of that is going to the offers of assistance. And you can obviously see if the Supreme Court had not ruled how they ruled, this is all the offer of assistance you would have gotten. And obviously that's shrinking, that has potential to shrink every year going forward without additional budget requests. So we use this opportunity to kind of take them through this and remind the board, this is really the only piece that they are approving, that have to approve, but we make them aware of the needs that are out there, because our annual need by our KEDS master plan is around $431 million per year. And that's a very conservative figure, by the way. And keeping things longer, than flipping them around every 1 or 2 years. And so we're pretty good stewards with that across all districts across the state. Obviously, our technology activity report through Munis gives us the spending rates, and we're the only state in America that can do that, because we have a standardized financial system, and then also has the commodity codes in there for technology. So we really are the only state in America that can really fully give its board and its public the total cost of ownership and spending for education technology. So this is one aspect of it. If we can roll down to the other parts of this. These are the other funding sources that we have coming in. There's some for the Computer Science and IT Academy. This is one area that we're also asking to restore the cuts to it. This is an area, Marty and Sean, I know you're aware of, that we've reached a point of people being applying for the certifications that are marketable in the public sector, that will have to start turning people away, which we haven't had to in the past.
We've not had to do that yet.
But we're approaching the time, and these are across a lot of different kinds of industries where these are certifications, like I say, the industry and the public sector wants and has demand. As
well as the computer science AP exams that we cover.
Yep. So at some point, we're starting to reach that point, obviously, and need that net restore. That's part of it. Here's the E-rate funding that you see, just so you'll be aware of. Part of our additional budget request, if you take a look at those 4 bullets underneath there, is to get funding for the student information system, the state portion of that. When we were appreciative when it happened, when we had funding to get the Infinite Campus system across the state, but we didn't get sustainment funding for that. And for the state edition, or the state accumulator, which is used by a variety of organizations for decision making, we did not get an ongoing funding source for that. So we've had to use the E-rate funds that we get back in to pay a portion of that. And my proposal is, let's fund that with the additional budget request and have that $1.6 million go to you all in the offer, including the offers of assistance. So we need that, the importance of that. I've talked to Infinite Campus about their importance of helping us out with this additional budget request from a couple of different aspects. This is one of them. Online registration is definitely another one, campus learning. But that would be the proposal, that you would see more of that. But we have to get it funded, because right now there's nothing funding it, and we didn't get an appropriation back in 2006 and 7 to fund the ongoing costs. And so therefore we've had to take it out of this. And that's what the part of that $14.6 million annually budget request goes toward. And that's 1.6 of it right there. We have a contingency, as all projects do, and that sometimes we have to use that, sometimes we don't. And it's been handy when we've had to. The escrow was zero for a long time. Now it's getting back up to close to a $1 a CAT's offer of assistance. Next item is the local funds that districts have to equally match. So obviously we're intending to give about $11.1 million in the CAT's offer assistance, which is about $21 as I can recall. And districts are required to match that, which once again is, I think, one of the smartest things in CATS that started back in the 1990s, early 1990s, that's happened. It actually gets get a bang for the buck that no other states have. Obviously, we can take the CATS offers of it, the rebates, send it to districts, you make that an offer, that's a 2 to 3 time bang for the buck. No other state has that. No other state maximizes their dollars like we do with the matching and with the rebates, and using that for the match as well. So the nice part from you all is we've never had, since 1990, any district lapse on their offer of assistance, and you have up to 3 years to actually match it. And every year we have some of our KEs that circle back to certain districts that are getting close to a lapse, because it's always important from a variety of reasons for that money to be spent in the district, but also for me to be able to tell the legislature we've never had a lapse. So if you increase that amount, we've never had a district not match it. And even when the numbers went up pretty high at one time, the district was always able to match it. We're now showing, this will be the last year we show this, and this version changed when we got the news that our funding would be restored for CUES and Infinite Campus this next year. Of this $3.7 million, that was zero. And now that's $3.7 million for the next school year. We are also going to fund, since that only funds online, the campus learning and online registration and the things we're doing with CUES, and also e-transcripts as part of that. For part of the next school year, we are using funding sources one time to fund for the rest of the school year, so districts are not trying to scramble of one school year ends and trying to use their local funds to come up with it. So we're going to pay for that for the entire year to help districts. But at this point, unless we get additional budget requests, districts will be taking that on full bore the next time. And then we talk about our the funds that go toward the Kentucky Education Network, the Kentucky Internet Services, and so we use this as a way to educate folks out there. Oh, I skipped one, the $43 million that districts apply for in E-rate rebates. So if you take what we get, which is 9.5, and add that to the 43, we're over $50 million annually that E-rate brings in. So that the Supreme Court decision was really important, obviously. We're now showing what we have for the KEDS funding, for the KIN funding, and that's something to educate our board what we have. We can scroll on down to beyond that. Then we show the School Facility Construction Commission. We've always shown this piece. Out of all the parts of this that we do with our plan, this is the only estimate that we have, because when folks are doing a new construction or major renovations, they don't break out the cost specific for education. We do work with our school facilities folks on trying to get this estimation. We estimate those, the education technology items, about $15 million per year. And then we take a look at all the different funding sources that are out there by KD, and no other state agency does this, reports it in America, with these technology that looks across their Department of Education and has insight to what they're paying for that education technology or technology-enabled system. And I say that because I think there's only like 3 or 4 states that have it equivalent to Kentucky, where their CIO, much like my position, reports directly to the commissioner, and they're in charge of all aspects of technology, just not the data side, just not a networking side, just not the instructional side, but all aspects of it. That's why I call this position the CIO and EdTech leader for Kentucky K-12. And so a few other states can come in close to that, and even the ones that do, they have to have cooperation from the other organizations that bring that to light. So that's about $14.2 million per year from all these other areas. So you get the grand total of $132 million. And then we take a look at districts through the TAR report is what you've been spending. And so that's not a guess. And we take a look at and anticipate they'll be somewhat similar going forward. And so we take a look at the SEEK funds that have been used and the corporate donations and the tax funds and all the other things that you all have coming in. And all that adds up to a grand total of $403 million, and which is short of the $431 million needed. So the teaching point that we use in the staff note, and I'm trying to see where I printed that out, to where one time I think we were at over 500 million very recently. 2 years ago, 500 million. Now it's dropped down to this. And pre-COVID, we were just above 200 million. So the teaching point we make to our board in the staff note is we are now on the downward path. And that's another reason why we need the additional budget requests to help districts through the refresh of technology and to help us keep the services that have been in place that districts have appreciated. So we show a 10-year time span in the staff note of how much this has dropped. So Mike and team, anyone else that want to mention a point about this that I didn't cover?
I think you hit on all the points, David, that we'd want to go through.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I got the staff note here. It was 215 million in 2016 and 17, around 228 million in 2017 and 18. And then you saw this jump during the COVID years when all the COVID money came up. And then we had 502 million in 22, 23. And so we're heading back downward pretty quickly, and we're trying not to tumble. And getting the additional budget request, I think, will keep us from tumbling. So appreciate and need your vocal support within your district. Obviously, we'll do our part, and we'll be coaching up our districts to do their part as well. We present this to the Board of Education on the 7th of August, and I anticipate they'll approve it and be very supportive as they normally are going forward.
And David, looking at some questions in the chat, all of these resources are in our board packet that we'll present to our Kentucky Board of Education.
Yeah.
And we'll make these additionally available in the notes following this webcast.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay. So let's talk about the recent study by the Auditor of Public Accounts on KD, the agency. In previous webcasts and in the notes I talked about, we got to see a draft of it, and then it went out to the public on the 2nd of July. And so I've sent you a link to, you can see the whole 556 page report. See if I'm going to be able to bring up. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to, and this is for our staff too. I know very few people say, hey, listen, I'm going to spend the time of going through 556 pages. But I do want to take some time to highlight certain parts in this thing. So we'll start to the left that you see here. That I think is important to do. This got a lot of input from school districts. A very high percentage of the input came from school districts. Their feedback, it also was a pretty extensive interview of an examination of KD agency staff. As I look back on all the audits done by the auditor's office since 1998, this is the most extensive audit that's ever been done of any state agency or any organization that I'm aware of. If you take a look, once again, you take a look at the other ones, maybe they looked at a sliver, a part of that organization, but not every aspect of that organization over extended period of time. So this is most extensive one done, just not in KD history, but I think in all Kentucky state government history of looking at every aspect of every system that we're involved with. So that gives the background here, and then take a look at the operational part. And it identified 4 areas in particular that were noteworthy accomplishments. And these are three, and I'll scroll back up here to number 4 here in just a second. So you can see the CATS program, out of all the things they looked at in this 556-page report, is identified 4 items, and the Kentucky Education Technology System was one of the noteworthy accomplishments, highly regarded as a forward-leaning, innovative approach to statewide school technology. And I would say this, and I was, and this is true with the staff across here. Anytime we do the audits, we're always saying, can we get better? So we're far from 100% perfect. And but I think the part with continuous improvement has really made a difference in us staying on the cutting edge of things throughout the years. And so I list the greatest hits that we have constantly, because I'm constantly dealing with people who don't realize what we already have in place. And I'm telling you over and over again, they don't realize our schools are connected to the internet. They don't. I mean, everything I present, even after all this time, and I have to do that. And it keeps them from building things again, not realizing we already have it in place. So we recognize we're always trying to get better, but we want to highlight the kind of things that we've done as well. Back up here. So this is going back to this, the top right here. You'll see the other item that was done well is the interaction with the staff and districts as far as finance. You also see it spent 3 pages on technology systems, so pages 81 to 83. And part of highlight in here is highly regarded by district superintendents, and this was a very high percentage of them. And you can see the interviews that happen and the results of the surveys in that 556 pages. So I appreciate the superintendent's feedback on us and their view of how well we're doing. So the numerous systems, technology resources are provided statewide, and KD facilitates collaboration between the districts, and spend some time on our master plan that are out there. It talks about here at the bottom of this right-hand page is we equip and we provide services to our school districts that nearly every other state does not provide. I would say the exception that I see, maybe the lone exception, is North Carolina out of all the states. Delaware does statewide approach, but they don't do it to the level and all the breadth of services that they provide throughout the state. Probably North Carolina is the closest, and there's a huge gap beyond Kentucky and North Carolina. And so if I go to the left part of this is kind of list the kind of systems that they saw in it, and obviously they saw all of them, but they're just listing a much to it. And that was pretty cool to see. And then it does recognize that throughout the report, and we'll be having, just for our OET staff that are watching, is we're going to go more in depth and just spend a day, hours on the audit results. And I'll schedule that with you to go over it, because it talks about in it, there's parts of it that impact other offices are doing. And what this is basically saying is OET needs to be more involved with some of these other offices are already doing or getting ready to do, because of obviously the background we have and the success we've had over the period of time. And I'll go to the next page to the right. You say page 48. And once again, it talks about we've tried to be a leader and innovative with mindset and continuous improvement, as I've said before. We do partner with school leadership, you all, and our vendor partners, and we were talking about a little bit earlier about everything that we do. They see that that's really an approach that is unique. And this is an organization that did this, PCG, that on behalf of the auditor's office, who worked with them, that does this for other states. And they were super impressed. Obviously, they've seen other states' equivalents of education technology and how they deal with it. So super impressed with the approach that we have in comparison to other states. So it's nice to see someone from the outside actually recognizing that.
David, I think when you say this is the most comprehensive audit report that we've seen, I think a magnitude perspective, I think it states pretty clearly in the audit that 32 superintendents participated in focus groups. So that the audit team that came in, that was hired to come in, not only worked individually with Kentucky Board of Education and KDE team members, leadership team, but also went throughout the state. So 114 superintendents gave feedback on a survey, which is like 67% response rate across the state. So when we say comprehensive, like emphasizing how comprehensive these findings were.
Thank you, Mark. The part that I did bring to them, and I think some of our leaders did too, is the importance of this additional budget request. And obviously, I'll use this when you see discussions on technology are centered on the need for additional funding. You see that in innovation and adaptability. And this was across the department where it talked about the kind of morale we have in Katy agency. And I would say this having worked here. I mean, these folks work so hard. I know in OET, we work hard and our heads down trying to make it a really good experience for all the schools and the staff that we're responsible for. And I'm so appreciative of that. And you can see that in the responses there. I do hope in folks that come from districts that work here see that. And I think they have a better appreciation for the scale of things that we do with the limited amount of people that we have. It's pretty amazing, the scale of responsibilities and services and the level of quality of them with the number of people that we have. But I do appreciate those that work it and even the other offices. I just see people working so hard to do great things, and their intention is not for themselves, but to make it a better experience for others. And we saw that in the superintendent's responses that they believe Katy produces high quality resources, considers the diverse needs of families and communities, and takes action to improve students and positively contributes to student success. And so that's a great high five. And I do want to say is typically, and you all have been through audits before, the always thing I ask in audits is, please identify things going well as the things not going well that can be better. There's a tendency in audit of any kind just to focus in on, well, here's what needs to be better, and they never mention the things going well. So I'm greatly appreciative. This is a first for me to see something like this done in all my years, where it identifies the positive things doing. And the other thing you always ask in our audit is, what's the true magnitude of it? So if you identify something has to be improved, don't give the impression that it's 99% broken for 99% of the folks. If it's 1% broken for 1%, that doesn't mean you ignore it, but you give a proper magnitude. So, I always look for that in these kind of things. And so I was very pleasantly surprised for the first time in an audit like this to identify positive things, just not in Office of Education Technology, but across the department, definitely recognize things that can be done better. And we're taking a look at that as well. So I appreciate, in order to get these responses, it's not just Katy staff. This is a reflection of our districts working together, as our vendor partners working together over extended period of time to common goals and missions. And that's how you achieve this kind of thing and sustain it. So I'm very proud and want to share that results, because I realize most of the time people don't look at the reports, especially when it's 556 pages. So I wanted to pull some parts of it out. Any other comments by anyone else?
Chuck, can you go ahead? We were just saying to wrap up the audit findings. It's really important for, inside the audit, where it recognizes that we're a state that at a state education agency, we not just look and focus on the agency, the KDE, but we're equally focused on our school districts. And when you look inside of Kentucky, when you're in Kentucky, we know that, and we know that's a part of the Kentucky education technology system. But when you look across the country, it's easy to identify that that's a highlight for us. And this is the first audit kind of findings that identify the great work that all of us are doing together. Hey, Chuck, can you go ahead and get into our cues?
Sure.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I can do that. So couple of big shout outs, big thank yous. So number one, I would be remiss if I didn't do a continual shout out to the advisory group that we pulled together for the CUES initiative. Each and every one of those folks have been amazing and awesome, and we appreciate the time they take out of their normal day to help us guide this super important work statewide. So big shout out to them. The initiative is progressing extremely well. We've got 59 districts now that I would consider in flight at various stages of their enablement process. Big shout out to those 59. All right, that's 16 early adopters. That's 43 cohort 1 or phase 1 districts, as well as the fact that, a shout out to Joanne and her entire enablement team from Identity Automation. I would say that every one of those 59 districts have had an opportunity multiple times now on a weekly basis to walk with their respective enablement partner through this process. And things are going extremely well. They really, really are. So that being said, I do want to go ahead and announce today that schedule adjustments are probably forthcoming. Okay. And I say that because most of the 59 districts, for all the right reasons, have opted to defer their claim or onboarding process, as well as federation, to when school starts, when all students and staff are there, which makes sense. So, obviously we are prepping. Joanne's team is prepping for that big push upon students returning and helping those 59 districts kind of get to the various stages of completion. That being said, we really want to wrap that up and wrap it up well and have every district in a really solid operational state before we launch Wave 2. And, Wave 2 right now, we're kind of targeting for late September, early October, just to give us the time just to wrap things up with that first cohort as well as our early adopters. There's also a really, really, really good chance, I would say, and stealing a term from David as a magnitude guy, 99.999% chance that we establish a 5th cohort. Okay. Some of the things that we continue to learn as we go through this process is because it's a very detailed, continual process on a weekly basis. I'll go ahead and admit and fall on my sword that 43 districts at one time in Wave 1 was probably a little excessive for everybody involved. So what we're going to do is we're going to pare down the size of Waves 3 and 4. All right, establish a 5th cohort that'll start later. But the great thing is we've got until the end of next summer to get all this done. So, we're in a really, really good place. I'm really happy with where we're at. I also want folks to know that KDE, the agency, us, we're going to share in this journey with you, because at some point in the summer, we're going to be going through this as well. We have our own uniqueness that we have to deal with at the department. The one thing, or shall I say the two things that we don't have, we don't have a source of authority for people. All right. An identity authority or an IDA. So we're having to jump through some hoops to figure out how we're going to get through this. We've got a lot of back-end systems that are reliant on some legacy approaches that we're going to have to modernize as well. So I say that because, once again, we're going to be with you on this journey ourselves. So, that being said, just some closing comments. This will continue to be, number one, an iterative process. All right. We're going to continue to refine. We're going to continue to update processes. You're probably going to see us kind of revamp, especially for those that are in flight. The establishment of the credentialing and the data validation is something that takes a lot of time. So for the next wave, we're going to try to get way out in front of that and give people more of a launch ramp to get some of that work done. The other thing we're doing, and I appreciate all of the input that we're getting from our school districts as they walk through this process. We're always going to try and balance uniformity statewide with flexibility. We have a great partner with a great product that can do a lot of things, and we don't want to ever inhibit that, but at the same time, have some degree of uniformity and consistency that we maintain statewide. So that's kind of an ongoing day-to-day conversation, but I want folks to understand that we're committed to that. Okay. And then last but not least, just some advice. All right. Number one, don't rush. Take your time through the process. Be patient. Okay. And be precise. And I think those are just 3 keys to your success with this. But once again, I just want to thank everybody that's involved. I want to thank our teams behind the scenes that are providing assistance, our school districts that are marshaling through this, and our partner with Identity Automation. So thank you, guys.
Chuck, that's an awesome update. And, I think also great life lessons, patience and precision, right?
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
awesome. We were talking yesterday, just valuing the excellence of a partner. And, Q's for us, statewide being a current in-flight project that is one of our most important things,
Yep.
access and identity, making sure that students, teachers, everyone across the state can get to their stuff as fast as they can, as fast as they need to, with efficiency, with effectiveness. And so honoring the excellence of a partner and being able to work those unique needs in individual districts, I think is awesome. Next on the agenda, Chuck, we've spent time going through our CIO summit topics since the CIO summit in March, and we wanted to honor that the final topic that we have not yet had a chance to go through. And you led that topic at the CIO Summit. We got great feedback, which we've continued to leverage. We'll continue to make sure that everyone's fully aware that this is such valuable feedback that we get inside of the summit while working with CAST. But Chuck, if you don't mind, lead us through that summit topic.
Yeah. So if everyone remembers that was there, and once again, thanks for everybody that showed up and provided input. That's always one of the most valuable things that we do every year. We introed a concept. All right. And the concept was, how can we better establish what I would call programmatic support? All right. To our just awesome technical community. And a big shout out. All right, to all that we do, as David's mentioned, the recognition we get through an audit. I will continue to say it's all built on, and it's all because of the work that everybody does. But we recognize that there's more that we could do programmatically to support the technical community. Do I need some folks on mute here? All right.
You're good.
All right, good deal. So, much like we do with our statewide digital learning coach network, how can we bring across every region, all right, people together as a community to provide assistance to each other? How can we gauge our vendor partners better to provide assistance where it's needed? How can we help provide and bridge some of those gaps where folks are struggling? So there were some key questions that we walked through, and I'm only going to touch on some major findings from those. One of the questions we asked was, other than all, and I say that in jest, which technologies do you find the most difficult to manage effectively, and why? And really, the results that we got from the tables was pretty overwhelming in 4 key areas. Okay. And in no uncertain order, when you look at the magnitude of devices that we've got out there in terms of endpoints. All right. Could I get my mute police on duty there? When you look at Chromebook repair, Chromebook replacement, Chromebook deployment, and it's not limited to just Chromebooks. Okay. But just trying to manage the magnitude of devices that are coming in and out of a school that have to be reissued, repaired, and replaced. That was a great topic where folks are struggling. Something Bob's aware of, and it's near and dear to Bob's heart. The one thing with cybersecurity that people are struggling with is all. Okay. And I think we recognize that. I mean, that is just something that we recognize across every district, trying to stay out in front of and on top of every single aspect of cybersecurity. It's daunting. So we got to figure out how we can all get better at that and provide better resources to help districts. Facilities technologies. And this is something, Mike Ledingham and I have talked about for a couple of years that we recognize is one of those things that kind of came out of the blue that districts are now having to deal with, okay, whether it's door access systems, security cameras, environmental technologies that you're having to deal with and manage, all right? Those are problematic in terms of just scope and scale, as well as, and this is a solution obviously I just talked about, when you talk about the basic concepts of identity management, interoperability, connecting systems together, user management, all that stuff, which obviously we've got a solution for that we're moving forward with Q's. So those were kind of the top 4 technologies that districts are just really, really struggling with to manage effectively. On the flip of that, we ask a question about what services have you brokered, all right, to offset some operational tasks to external partners. As we've outlined on our People Side of EdTech white paper, one of the concepts there is starting to leverage your partners externally more as an extension of your staff, and maybe start to operationalize some of those day-to-day activities and actually put the technology in the hands of people that are more equipped from an availability perspective to help you with that. So some great examples of where people are doing that. We've got a lot of districts that are taking advantage of device repair and white glove services for Chromebooks specifically. All right, which I think is an awesome opportunity that I think everybody should look into. Our networking partners are apparently doing a tremendous job in providing some brokered services through, the E-rate eligible MIBS opportunity. All right, so we think there's a lot of districts that are taking advantage of that to just kind of defer a lot of monitoring and support of the network out to their network provider. Super smart. One thing that's near and dear to my heart, and it's a big shout out to KEDC and Charlie Holbrook, is, KEDC developed I'll call it an identity provisioning solution several years ago that provisions accounts from Infinite Campus to local Active Directory, commonly referred to as Charlie in the Box. All right. Well, I had 39 districts taking advantage of that service. Super awesome opportunity there that districts saw value in, but it's a great example of a brokered service. And then last but not least, we had several people mention how they're leveraging our STLP students. Okay. And we've had STLP students providing support to districts for decades. And I think that's just a really, really awesome opportunity to engage. So we had a couple of other questions around how you felt about the effectiveness of maybe establishing somebody at the state level that could help collaborate and bring people together. We asked about the different forums that you would like. And basically what we heard across the board was, all right, number one, we need more assistance on site and we need more training, both. Okay. And we get that. And we've got to figure out how we can bridge that gap, as well as we need to make sure that any training opportunities, all right, can be not only face-to-face, but virtual, because we do recognize it's really difficult to get out of school districts at times, even for really, really necessary training opportunities. So Marty, David, that's just a quick review of Summit Topic 5. We take that feedback very, very genuinely and sincerely. So now it's on us to figure out how we can put some things in place at the programmatic level to help accommodate that. So thanks.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Marty, you hit on the professional learning management. I know we covered this with our OET staff, how it affects what we do, but there's a bigger picture. So
yeah, absolutely. And, really just want to make sure everyone's aware that the Kentucky Department of Ed has recently gone through a competitive bid. We briefly talked about it in the past of providing a comprehensive professional learning management system statewide for any learning opportunity, any learning content that any department or any office within the agency works with school districts on. And so we will be officially launching the professional learning management system very soon, but wanted to make you aware. It's kylearninghub.org. That's the URL. That's the website. I've also dropped just a real quick promo video. It's less than 60 seconds for you to watch later, just to give you an idea a little bit more about KY Learning Hub. It's a hub for learning for professionals and for teachers, for certified folks, for classified folks, for required learning, required trainings that are offered throughout the state annually, as well as for learning opportunities and content that folks just want to level up on. And so you're going to see courses and modules available inside the KY Learning Hub. Right now, there's 6 to 8 available. By August, you'll see well over a dozen courses available that hit all different kind of folks inside your district. Again, this is for adults. This is for professionals. That's the target. It's not a student-oriented learning management system. Those are things that you do inside your district, which is awesome. And this is kind of jumping off on that to make sure that we have a one-stop shop for all professional learning that the Kentucky Department of Education offers. For our EdTech leaders, you'll see a course that's already available around an STLP topic, but you'll continue to see additional learning opportunities inside the KY Learning Hub for EdTech leaders. And we're excited about that partnership. across the agency and to have a really nice, like I said, one-stop shop. So check out that promo video when you get a chance. Not right now, but I think you'll enjoy that. And it'll kind of help put an exclamation point on the KY Learning Hub.
Thanks, Marty.
Yep.
Dee Dee, our data systems update. I know we have some announcements to make, some pretty cool ones.
Oh, thanks, David. You hear me okay?
I do.
Oh, great. So just a quick announcement. You've already mentioned the online registration and campus learning, so I'm not going to spend any time with that, but I've gotten a lot of questions about if you've already paid it. We're working with Infinite Campus on how to make those refunds happen. That's not an easy process. I want to thank Infinite Campus for their patience because we've gone back and forth. This is a really good thing. But I would say the timing wasn't obviously ideal with being able to find out we actually had that money. So work with Infinite Campus. You could submit a ticket if you'd like to go ahead and initiate that. Work with Lisa DeGarris on that too. We do have some Social Security number diet updates on that. We have been able to remove through the new Social Security number tool all of the Social Security numbers from State Edition, which is awesome for us because that was 1.7 million Social Security numbers that are now gone. So that's a good thing. Well, that tool is going to be available to you to do similar work to remove the Social Security numbers in your systems that you no longer need. So, the question comes to you, have you been, we've been letting you know this is coming. Are you prepared for that decision on what Social Security numbers you would like to remove? Do you have consensus of within your division, your district? Have you talked to your local board attorneys? Those are the type of things that if you haven't done, now's a really good time to be doing that, to be able to help improve, it's sensitive data that, lessen the amount of sensitive data in your system that's no longer needed. Again, that's a start. Social Security numbers is a start. We want to continue to look at data that is no longer needed in these systems and remove that data as possible. So another thing we've been working on, I know everybody's got a lot of questions about Senate Bill 181. I came in a little bit late today, but I think I heard yesterday that the superintendents were going to discuss that today in today's meeting. So more information will come out there. Infinite Campus did provide some training. It's a one-way communication. It's a tool in your toolbox. That training was recorded. So if you didn't have an opportunity to see that, it is available. Senate Bill 19 allows for moral instruction providers. They have to be approved by the local board. So that collection of data will be in Infinite Campus. The providers will have to be entered there. And we're doing that instead of having to do a quarterly collection from districts. So it should be something that removes, it makes it a little bit more easier for you all to report that data and keep it updated. But as students attend moral instruction, they get 1 hour a week, and that includes travel time. That attendance has to be tracked. So that is also being done in Infinite Campus. So you should get some more information. We do have Infinite Campus training this week. It's on Thursday. I sent out another reminder this morning for folks to register. So that will be something that's discussed there. House Bill 241, we have to track 100% virtual students. We will have more information on this coming out. We will do that in Infinite Campus. It will change the way we track 100% virtual students. It's not there yet. It'll probably be September before we actually have that information in there. So for now, do the same thing you've always been done. We'll continue to track it the best we can. So another thing I want to mention is that school report card time. It's here again. So as usual, the school safety data collection opens soonest. It normally opens about this time of year, but it's going to be about a week late. So next week we should see the school safety data open up for district review. The reason that's done earlier is because we've got an OEA requirement, Office of Education Accountability, Legislative Research Commission, that we have to report that to the Center for School Safety and those other players by the end of August. The rest of the education opportunity overview section, those won't open until mid-August, along with the collection tool. The collection tool is opening a little bit later than normal. We're moving towards a phased approach where we release part of the school report card in October and the rest of it in mid to late November. So it's the assessment accountability data that will be delayed, and that's because of some standard setting that's going on. So keep that in mind. But one extra thing, David, that's just the civil rights data collection. Thanks to everybody for their patience, and they're getting the work that was done to get that done. The final review window for the 23-24 data closed at the end of last month. And we're not going to report school civil rights data until the 25 2026 year. So nothing this year, but we'll be reporting again next year. That's
Thanks,
all
Dee Dee.
I have.
I want to, but before so you had a couple of poll questions, but before that, I want to share something with our staff and with all the districts out there as it regards to student Social Security numbers. I'm very proud of what we did in over the years and what we've done with the audit results. We're a national leader and pioneer in nearly every aspect of education technology. The one thing that we are not a national leader in and pioneer is having so many student Social Security numbers still in Kentucky. We are the rare exception of that, and that's not a good exception. I've met with my peers twice of the other 49 states, and I bring up this topic. And Kentucky may be the only state, or definitely one of the few states, that is still using student Social Security numbers within our school information system. We have unique student identifiers. If anything were to happen, it's really difficult to explain to somebody why you have the Social Security number of 5th graders in your system, 7th graders in your system. And when I talked with the state that went through a power school incident, now they had power school heavily in their state, but the thing that they say that saved them from it being a total embarrassment and a catastrophe in their state was they did not have Social Security numbers of students in their system. And just for those that are new, that are watching for the first time, the reason Social Security numbers are so valuable to cyber criminals is they use them to go undetected for long periods of time to do criminal activity. That's why they want them. That's why it's such a valuable resource, is because they can create bank loans, they can get car loans, they can use it for a variety of very destructive types of things. They cannot use a unique student identifier to do that in Infinite Campus. It doesn't play out the same way. And so, as I explained to folks, this is something there needs to be a sense of urgency to do something about, because you cannot explain it to the public why we still have these things. And so I have met with Kentucky Stats very recently. Dee Dee Connor and I did. And I met with the commissioner yesterday about this topic, about Kentucky Stats moving away from using student Social Security numbers. They already don't get 30% of them, so they found a way to do this without Social Security numbers. And it's not because I think we have a very good longitudinal data system with Kentucky Stats, but Indiana has a very good one as well, right across the river. And they do not use student Social Security numbers. In fact, any state that I would call a leader in this category does not use student Social Security numbers. And so the first thing we're asking to do is get rid of the old ones. And that has not been done yet, but we're going to put pressure on them. All these ones, they have students of all these years. Why do you still have them in a system that have long graduated years ago? So I'm just telling you, this is an area of emphasis for us. We are not on high ground like we normally are. Us still using student Social Security numbers in the state of Kentucky, if something were to happen compared to every other state, is we are in low ground with that. And there needs to be a sense of urgency by just not KD organizations, by districts, by these other state agencies that have developed a dependence on them to move away from them. And so we are aggressively working with them, along with Kia, to move away from them. The state of North Carolina, they do not, for their equivalent of Kia, they do not use student Social Security numbers. They use the unique student identifiers. Nearly every state that I'm aware of, maybe there's one that still uses them, and that one realizes it is not a good thing to still have them, and they need to move away from them.
Yeah, and that, David, just to add to what you're saying, some of this requires legislative action. So when you're talking to your legislature, that is a good topic to bring up. Why do we still use this at this point in time? Why are these required? Because at the state level, we are not required to collect Social Security number. Those collection requirements are around districts, and it's only for high school, and it's only for a couple of things. It's no pass, no drive, and it's the Keys Awards. So those are the type of things that are required. I mean, it might be some other scholarship type of funding, but there's other ways to do that. And as students receive those benefits, maybe the time to collect that is from the agencies using it, not from a high school or the K through 12 organizations that are not using the Social Security. We're expected to pass them along.
So let me talk about one of the issues you have around this topic is 100% perfection. The most difficulty I have with people is the 100% perfectionists. And you have it in the data arena where they want 100% perfection. And what these other states have moved away from, realizing there's not going to be 100% perfection. And there has to be a willingness to stop accepting the risk of putting so many of our students at risk in the pursuit of 100% perfection. So I want Social Security numbers so I can get 100% perfection of matching data from one source to another. These other states have moved away from 100% perfectionists and realizing there are certain situations of a 1% of a 1% of a 1% situation that having a Social Security number would have been handy, but we're putting the other 99.99% of students at risk for that 100% perfectionist approach. So I would say, and all these other states have moved away from it, is you have to have some give on the benefit of students for the 100% perfectionists that we have. And that's who they're putting at risk because they're in pursuit of 100% perfection, because say, well, we have this, we can't 100% guarantee that's the student we are matching data. And we got to move away from that. Or there's going to be a risk, there's going to be a big exposure, and we'll be embarrassed across the state, and we'll move away from it at that time. I'd rather do it ahead of time versus a really embarrassing national thing to happen with in Power School. Now, there's other states that did not have their Social Security numbers removed from Power School, and they're dealing with that situation now, and they are now moving away from that if they had it in there in their school districts. Next up is our
David, before you go on, can I mention one thing I forgot? The CIOs may have already heard this, but just in case, I know the DACs and the superintendents were informed, but Kentucky has a new college admissions test. We're no longer an ACT state. We're going to be an SAT state. So College Board won that college admissions testing contract. So that will be a change for the 25-26 reporting and testing. So I'm sorry about that. I had forgotten to mention that.
Yeah. Dee, we had two charts that you pointed out. So you want to show these?
Yeah, they're launching right now. Both of those poll questions are launching now.
While those are launching, I feel like I want to jump in here real quick and make sure folks understand that a student Social Security number is way more valuable than an adult Social Security number because it's a blank slate and no one has really tried to do anything with it yet. It's not going to have a prior record. And so crooks can initiate that as the first record for that Social Security number. And then some of the Power School victims, some of the folks who had Social Security numbers in there didn't just have like 12 years. They had Social Security numbers going back, 20 years for a long, long time. And so that's what made some of those so bad. And that's why, the districts that don't have Social Security numbers or the states that don't have Social Security numbers are in a way better place than those that are still using them.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, that's a good lead in for you to do the reminder cybersecurity health check. Yep.
It was fun.
Okay. I can go ahead and jump into that. And of course, folks, I hope everyone is at least working on your cybersecurity health check that you will present to the board sometime before the end of August. I know I'm working on mine for KDE here. And if this is the first time you've heard about that, that is KAR 702-001-170, Section 3. And if you are working on that, I encourage you to look at things that you are doing in your district for security, even if you don't think that they are, security. When I look at queues, for example, all the prep work that you're doing for queues is something that I would recommend putting in your cybersecurity health check that you're going to report to your board. All the data cleanup, all that stuff will help make you more secure than you were 5 months ago, this time last year, for example. And so please keep a look at that. If you've been using the CISA external vulnerabilities scanning, put in some results from that. And then if you had some things that popped up during those scans, what did you do to take care of those scan results? If you have gaps in your security, or if you expect gaps in your security to come up, make sure that your district leadership understand that those gaps are going to be there and then what would help you get rid of them. For example, if there are things you still need to do, if you carry cybersecurity insurance, for example, and there are things that your district might need to do in order to have a better stance for your insurer, what would those things be? And then what would you need in order to implement those items? So kind of keep that in mind. All those things can go into your cybersecurity health check, and it's an opportunity for you to advocate for both cybersecurity and technology with your district leadership and talk about things like funding and what you need and all that stuff, things that will make you more secure, or things that you might not be able to address and you just might have to eat that risk. But you want to make sure that the folks in that district leadership position understand where you're at and where the weaknesses are, if that makes sense. If this is the first time you've heard about this and you're not sure what I'm talking about, if you're a new CIO DTC, feel free to give me an email. I'd be happy to send you some more information about this. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bob. Next items have to deal with a couple of legislative topics. Last week, Mike Lenningham and myself were part of a legislative committee meeting. I encourage you to take a look at that. I've talked about it in previous webcasts at a general level, but now you can actually see it, what I was talking about in action. So you'll see me opening up along with Mike, presenting what we're doing in Kentucky K-12 as far as the internet on the school campus and beyond the school campus, and how it relates to a couple of other initiatives. And then you'll see a couple other representatives come on, and you'll get some of the history I've been telling you about. You'll see it live, come to life there to watch it. So I encourage you to watch the whole thing to get a feel what's going on in that area. And I don't really need to comment more than that. I'll let you make your own judgments about it, but it's pretty informative. And so I encourage our staff, our OET staff, and our district leadership staff to understand this topic that's come to light. And I've talked about it previous since March with you, and then just pretty regularly it's coming more to a head than it ever has before. So encourage you to take a look at that. Next item up is this afternoon. Marty Park and I will be presenting to the Kentucky AI Committee on AI in Kentucky K-12. I've sent you a link of what we plan to talk from in that committee meeting. That's something on our OET portion of our website that we keep up to date on the current events that are going around AI in Kentucky K-12 education, all the resources out there. You'll see that feedback from you all during the CIO summits are there from 2023, 24, and 25 regarding artificial intelligence, which I think is some of the best information. I encourage you to take a look at that too, that link. The Gallup organization has made a recent survey that they've just done a report on that I think is outstanding. And they talk about it, that AI from a teacher perspective is saving 6 weeks out of their school year in time of things they normally had to do that now they can do other things that are school related that they previously had to do. So it's very interesting, the different subject areas that are using it, the teachers, how they're using it, what percentage are using it. Typically, if the districts have policies and guidelines, school district has districts and policies around AI, it ups the percentage of schools using it. And those that don't, it lowers their probability of using it as well. So right now, I guess that report showed about 60% of teachers use it. And there's like, what's that, Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah, 60%. And there's a good number of them that use it daily and weekly. So definitely has added value in all the areas that you all identified. So if you've never seen that or you're new to us, I encourage you to take a look at both the recent Gallup results that are posted in that link, along with the feedback, just as a reminder that we asked you at the last CIO summit about what differences have you seen since this became light back in late 2022. Where do you see it going over the next 2 years in your school district? Do you need any other guidance from us? What are some of your apprehensions about it? Those are all summarized there for you to see, along with when we initially started asking these questions back in 23 and 24. So those are good resources, and we're going to make sure the committee is aware of those, along with from what we're seeing, how that matches up the report that just came out by Gallup and how that crosswalks to Kentucky, which it does quite nicely.
David, one quick point about the Gallup survey that I think is interesting. If you get a chance or an opportunity to spend a little bit of time in it, we always love to look at like how many people were surveyed. Can you take those results and generalize them? There were over 2,000 teachers across the country that were surveyed in this one, but the interesting part about this survey is they were pulled from the RAND American Teacher Panel, which Kentucky participates in. And so you're in your district, I'm sure you're familiar with the RAND Teacher Panel that does teacher touch points and teacher surveying throughout the year. And I think that's why this report is also interesting, because it's representative of Kentucky as well.
Last month, the last topic we have is we hit upon, if you take a look at the summary of June, we covered the topic of Senate Bill 181, the traceable communications, and the summary notes are in there. And we provided those to those that were creating the Q&A, the question and answer for today's webcast. Just on our perspective, I talked to folks that are out there. The perspective that this was meant to do was, as I've said before in the note, this was really personal communications to personal communications between student and teacher, text to text, personal email to personal email, personal text to personal text, personal some whatever else app they're using that to get around it. So that's summarized in the summary section, but you'll hear it talked about today. I encourage you to point your superintendent to this. I know a lot of you are being thrown in the middle of this. And so in your all's position, so we want to make sure your superintendent is aware of some guidance that is coming out, not necessarily from us. And we have a whole question for you. Are you aware of the superintendent webcast later today? Will be discussed in detail with your superintendent. Yes, or I am now, one of those two. So you may want to participate in that, and that gave you the link that the Q&A will be posted to here after the webcast, the superintendent's ends. So we got only about 20%, as I see now, were aware of it, and now they are. So
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's all we have, unless someone has something else that bubbled up that they would like for us to discuss. I know we say no later than 11:30, but no saying that we can't end sooner than that. Does anyone else on our staff or anyone else have something like to discuss, or someone that's looking at the chats and feedback says we need to bring something else up?
David, just quick mention, just a couple weeks ago, we had our STLP state champions represent Kentucky, represent you and your school district and your state at the International Society for Technology and Education conference. They did an awesome job. We had representatives there that got to share back with us, and it was fun to watch our students in Kentucky shine. If you've been to that event and you know that space where students are presenting, hundreds and thousands of people flock to hear students, representing learning, leveraging technologies, and representing helping other people leveraging technologies. And it was an awesome opportunity for our students to continue to shine.
Also along that line is the Kentucky teachers going to be highlighting each one of our project state champions, with the first one being from Fairdale High School with paw print. I saw the article and sent them some pictures from that. So always like highlighting, what we're doing, our success with STLP, but you'll see that also in Kentucky Teacher coming up. Well, thanks for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of July, and we'll see you in the August timeframe. Take care.